Tired of feeling stuck, unseen, or like your body isn't yours anymore? It's time for a reset. Welcome to An Ageless Life, the midlife reset show, where science, movement, and mindset help you feel strong, energized, and like yourself. I'm Devi, a clinical pharmacist, Argentine tango dancer and instructor, and your guide for redefining how women thrive and grow in midlife and beyond. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to our next episode of Midlife Reset. I am super excited about the guest that we have today. I have Michelle Abraham. She is, I don't know. She's got so many hats that she wears and so talented in so many things that she does. I met her through podcasting, and she is a woman who actually helped me bring my podcast to life. So thank you very much, Michelle. And Akashic Records, general guru with a lot of different things. I guess maybe I'd have you explain kind of how you talk about the other things that you do. Because there's a lot of them and you're really good at them.
Oh, thank you, Diana. It's so nice to be here. And oh my gosh, I love this show that you put out into the world. I always say is that like the timing of birthing a show is that perfect timing. And this show has been so cool to see come to life.
Thank you. So let's dive into a little bit, because I want to talk about the process that brought, because usually people think about, oh, it's a podcast. Yeah, you record it, you throw it out there, you hope it does well, and you move on from there. But my experience when I was working with you was a little bit different than what I had heard from others' experiences, and was the reason why I decided that you would be the perfect person for me to walk through. So, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the things as far as how to prepare yourself to even get to the point where you're going to do a podcast, and what kind of things kind of go through your mind?
Sure, yeah. I think it's really awesome. I think everyone has a podcast in them, especially when you're going into a midlife reset. That's when a lot of our clients have just gone through this midlife reset, and it's really cool to see how podcasting has this message that they want to bring to the world, and it's a perfect vehicle for you to use your voice, but that voice comes with so much history. And sometimes that voice to get it out there in the world is stopped by a lot of roadblocks. And it makes me sad because I know everyone's got this message that can change lives. And I know this message is meant to get out there into the world, but there's so many things that stop them. And they're the same four things that stopped me from first starting to talk about my podcast or talking on a podcast. And that was that like analysis paralysis. I got to think about it and think about it and think about it. And and then there's the fear of the equipment, and then there's the not being embarrassed by your first few episodes. I say you waited too long to put it out there. Just start pressing record and going. And these are all the things that we think that it's a lot of work and it's not going to be worthwhile. And if we just stop for a second and prepare ourselves in a different way, this is where when you came through, what we're doing is different than how I had coached podcasting for many years. And what I noticed is that sometimes people would launch shows and then they would fade out after a few episodes and not get excited about it. And then I started tuning into what if we got into alignment with our divine assignment here? What if we got into an alignment with what really is the message that we want to share? What are the stories that we want? What's our why behind what we do? And once we kind of dig down a little deeper and spend a little bit more time in that place, and that's when we started tuning into the Akashic Records and then looking at our voice codes and what's the frequency that we're putting out there. That's when it all shifted. And that's when we started putting out podcasts that were incredible, life-changing. They changed not only the hosts' lives, but the listeners' lives. And that's where I feel really proud of the way that we do it now, which is very different than just get in the equipment, press and record, and off you go. Because these shows are carrying voices that are changing lives and making a difference in the world.
Well, and I want to kind of break down some of the things that you talked about because I think understanding how, and because some of the things that you talked about, I didn't even really even think about before we had conversations and before some of the training. For example, your tone of voice and the voice or the intention that you have when you come to the podcast. So, do you want to talk a little bit about that and maybe some of the recommendations that you had or things that you shared as far as that goes? So people kind of have a glimpse of how it's different because it is different.
Mhm. Sure. Well, one of the things I think that's helped me the most coming to the microphone is not just sitting down at my desk and pressing record. It's like I go outside. It's a ritual for me. So I go outside, I get into nature, I do some deep breaths. I'm in a forested area, so that forest energy is always so good there. I can touch a tree. Um, and now I talk to my tree thanks to you.
Yay!
give my get my little go for a little walk in the forest. So that for one, first thing, it raises my vibe. It raises my frequency. It grounds me. So getting out in nature and getting out into the outside environment sets me up for coming in feeling calm, cool, collected, restored. I have a clear head. I have a smile on my face. My energy is usually apparent through the color of my skin. And my voice, you can hear it in my voice, that happiness. And I think one of the secrets to a cool podcast is that you can hear a smile over the airways. Just by smiling, it makes a difference because you're in somebody's ear on the other end in their earbuds. Kind of crazy, actually. We're in people's heads. So that's the ritual I do. And then I usually will have some sort of a stone with me. I usually have a quartz with me. I don't have one here today because I'm in a different location, but I did go outside and do my ritual. Yeah, you have yours. That's great. And so those are some of the things that I do to ground myself before I get started. And then I always make sure my guest laughs before we press record. That just brings in my guests in a way to relax, enjoy, have fun, sets the tone for the interview. And then off we go. So that's my little pre-recording ritual.
And it sounds like setting the stage, so to speak, before you actually go on and do anything, really changes not only the way you show up, but how people hear you. Which for me, I had not considered that at all. I knew that I wanted to speak slowly enough that people could understand what I was saying, and I didn't want to use words that were too jargony, but not thinking about you want to be centered, you want to be grounded, all of those kinds of things, which I found was really helpful, extremely helpful. And as I've gone through it more and more, I've noticed that I've hitting more, so to speak, of where my energy and my pace is. I want to shift a little bit, and you talked a little bit about the Akashic Records. And can you explain how that kind of fits in with the podcast and what you do for people that join the High Vibe Network and how that kind of helps with, I guess you could say, life mission or your divine purpose or what your message is?
Sure, yeah. And I don't know why I never connected these two things together for a long time because I was I was taught how to read the Akashic Records, and anyone can read them. The Akashic Records, for maybe those that don't know, is like the great hall of records through all your pastimes and human experiences. And each person has access to theirs, and you can go in, and in fact, your business even has one as well. And you can get in through meditation, and there's a prayer that you do to open up the Akashic Records. And once you go in, you have the opportunity to, take a look and see what's the divine purpose of why am I here? What am I up to? Am I on the right track? What are some keys to look for? Every time you go into the records, you get a little bit more information. And I found a way to get into the records that gives a lot of information in a little bit quicker way using some of our new technology. And it's been great for podcasting because I'll give an example of one of our podcasters where he came in thinking he was going to teach about something to do with corporations. And he was excited about it. But, I could tell it was, excited, but not like really excited. And then we took a look in his records and aligned it with some of his background and asked a few questions. And it came out on the other end that was a completely different project that had a whole global message and movement attached to it that had to do with some of his story. And the difference in his face, he was lit up and excited, and like now it's added that fuel. So that's why I started thinking that the records are a really great place to look, just to check in before you launch something into the world, making sure you're on the right track. And the difference between a cool podcast and a really cool podcast that changes lives and makes a difference and is has that those legs that can and carry you forward for a long time, just like yours, Diana, is something that I think the it's really great to check in on before you launch.
Well,
I don't
and
know any other podcaster that does that.
I thought it was really interesting because there was some stuff that I knew and a bunch of other stuff that I didn't know. And then there was this third category of, oh, that's how all of this relates together. Because it's
Yeah.
like sometimes you think, well, I've had these life experiences and I really rather have not had them, but I've had them and now we're here. And now I'm like, that's why we went through all of those things because it brought about some kind of learning or whatever it is, which made it so that the podcast was much more relevant to people as far as that goes. So, yeah. So, tell me a little bit more about, I mean, because you do a lot with podcasting and a lot of different aspects. So, tell me a little bit more about the High Vibe Network and why that was such a calling for you and what it is that is, for lack of a better term, your mission with that.
Yeah, I'd love to share that. It's interesting because, speaking about alignment, it's interesting how life kind of unfolds. I started on the podcasting path a long time ago when I became a new mom, and it just the experience I had as a listener changed my life, and that made me want to also think about, well, wow, if this one podcast changed my life in that way, then I can imagine if we got more podcasts out there and more listeners in this world, what an impact we can make. And fast forward today, I mean, that was over 15 years ago. Fast forward today, we really have over 5 million podcasts out there, and more than 50% of the population listens to a podcast on a weekly basis, which is cool.
It's a lot.
It is a lot, right? So there's a lot more listeners out there than there ever was. And when I started the podcasting industry, I got so excited because these people doing the podcast are changing lives. I'm so excited to put them out there into the world. And I absolutely love podcasting and so glad that the world's caught up to understand what a podcast is now. Because when we first started, everyone's like, it's a podcast. And I'm happy to say that we stuck with it for so long that now everyone knows what a podcast is.
Something to be said for longevity, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yay. Finally, you guys understand what I mean. But the way I was operating in my business was totally out of alignment with me. I was doing all the things, all the details and all the logistics and admin stuff. And that is not my zone of genius. That is not what I should be doing. And it burnt me out. And so I thought the answer was to step away from podcasting. So I stepped away from podcasting to go on and I launched High Vibe Leaders as this community because I know community is so important. Community and connection, which is one of the things I liked about podcasting, that connection with guests, and it's the best networking tool in the world. But it wasn't until I spoke to some people that I've been talking about podcasting with for a long time. I was like, yeah, why did you never launch that show? And they were all saying that they didn't want to do it alone. I was like, well, you're not going to do it alone. We're here to help you do it. And it just wasn't the same. And so, funny enough, I was struggling with High Vibe Leaders, trying to get momentum with this community, and people weren't. There's so many communities out there. We're getting a little bit of Zoom fatigue these days.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I put the two and two together when I said, do you want to do a podcast as like a network and a community that all is as soon as I did that, oh my gosh, Diana, alignment, right? You said yes. And about 10 other people said yes within a matter of like 4 days. And I was like, oh, okay. It was like the universe just gave me a big smack on the head, like, duh, this is what you're supposed to be doing still, but it's just in a different way. So that's when we started looking at what's our voice, how can we amplify this voice in this vessel that we have and open up the frequencies a little bit more. How can we raise the vibe of the community and the collective? How can we interview each other and build community and be in connection with each other? So once we started doing those things and coming from that alignment piece, everything made sense, and now we love it. Now I love it again.
Yeah. And I think the aspect of community was another big thing that was a draw for me. And you touched on it a little bit, but even some of the other things that you do, as far as, for example, hosting a group of us to come together and being able to be on each other's podcasts and those kinds of things, that kind of sense of community is something that I think we're all looking for. And for me, it has made a difference in being comfortable with, it's one of those things when you have a friend that's with you and you go do something daring, it's a little bit easier than if you're just like, I'm on my own as far as that goes. So that's been great. So now the podcasts are up and running. People can see them on all of the 40. They're on YouTube as well. So what's next?
Oh my gosh. Interesting question. I think there's just more connection and more community coming from this experience. What I really noticed is that we love getting together as a community. Like we are recording with each other and experiences, and several of our community members have come on retreats together. And so I think that's more moving more towards like from behind the screen to in-person events and connection pieces in person. And what I would love to see grow is that piece of the connection, the community, and the voice amplification. I would love to see that piece be something where we can showcase your guys' work too. So, if you do an online course, we put it on our network and we help promote it, and it be this place for people to come to learn, grow, heal, like the high vibe healing, high vibe living, high vibe leading, three pillars. I see this being a platform that people can come to for education, and you guys being our educators as the podcasters, and this platform just taking wings. I see us doing live events across the continent. I got inspired by Louise Hay's "We Can Do It" event back in the day, and I remember seeing these are all speakers and authors on stage in a one-day event. I was like, this has always been here. About the new network, we could do that too.
Well, then you also, aside from doing the High Vibe Leaders Network and those things, you yourself do retreats, right? So why
I do.
don't you talk a little bit about those? Because those sound, I wanted so bad to go to the last one, but timing did not work out. So
Yes.
talk about those. Those are sound super interesting.
Yeah, they're really fun. I call them scroll quests because, again, connected to the Akashic Records, every lesson that we're learning in our life is like a scroll, and it's something that podcasting helps us learn the scroll of visibility. And so we go on a scroll quest, and I've identified some places around the world that we go to, and we've gone to Costa Rica and Mexico. We've done some in Canada. I'm doing one here on the Sunshine Coast where I live next week. And the community and the connection are powerful. But what's cool about our retreats that no other retreat leader is doing is it's all connected by a podcast. So our retreat participants listen to the podcast in the morning
Yeah.
about what we're doing for the day. And then in the evening, they have like a meditation that just reinstalls the learnings from the day. And then every part of in the big part of the day, there's a date with yourself. So that's a cool, and I've got a little thing that you do with the date for yourself. So you listen to the podcast and you play along with it on the retreat too, which is kind of cool. I incorporated retreats and podcasting in a different way. Actually, our first retreat was a podcast creation retreat.
Interesting.
Mhm.
That sounds fabulous, especially the date with yourself. It's kind of like, yeah, when was the last time I went on a date with myself? Usually
Yeah.
there's too much stuff to do. So I find that very interesting when you talk about the scrolls and how they're different aspects of scrolls. So podcasting is a visibility. What are some of the other scrolls that are out there that you focus or talk about or that come up?
Yeah, so we have like the scroll of becoming. And so it's becoming who you meant to be in this world. We have scroll of radiance. So you'd like that one. That's all about your self-care and becoming the most radiant you. Each retreat has a different set of scrolls that go along with them. And so it kind of makes it for a different, unique experience on each retreat, which I think is really cool too. It kind of brings up a different vibe. It attracts different people to each one. So the one that we're doing in a couple of weeks here have a few different specific scrolls. So one was that scroll of becoming. Another one is the scroll of healing, which is our divine embodiment. So we're gonna part of the training I have is in quantum shifts in timeline therapy and hypnotherapy and NLP coaching. So we're going to do a quantum shift first, which is like a breakthrough. And then we're going to get the scroll of healing, which is our divine embodiment of that healing. And then we're going to have the scroll of the voice, like I mentioned before, and we're going to have our true expression. We're going to work on that throughout the week. And then scroll of purpose. So we're going to figure out what our soul mission is here through some technology I've created called soul cartography, and which is all about your legacy. And the scroll of legacy is the last one that we're going to do this week at our next retreat. So all sorts of fun things. Because
Sounds
once you've cleared the
action-packed, but
past,
really interesting.
yeah, and once you've cleared the past and installed new behaviors and new beliefs, then you can map your soul, which is with the soul cartography. Now you have a map and a compass for where you need to go next, which I think is kind of cool.
So you clear the space, you get your map out, you find out where you're going and get there. And I'm assuming much faster, much clearer, and have a greater impact, right?
Yeah. And you can design your business from that place. Yeah.
So on the retreats, does somebody have to be a podcaster in order to go to these?
No,
That's
anyone can
nice. Anybody
come.
can come. Good. Yeah, that's great. Um, let's see there. I had another question when you were talking about that. Oh, so you have one coming up in a couple of weeks. How often do you have these?
We have I've been doing them 3 times a year, and one of them is on a cruise ship. And so the one that we have coming up on a cruise ship is next year. And that one's called the scroll quest is a passport to authority. So the scrolls that we're going to be collecting throughout there is different stages: becoming a speaker, becoming a podcaster, becoming a author. Those are all the scrolls based around visibility and your authority in your business is on that one, which is kind of cool. And then I have two others, and the dates are not planned just yet. So I'm just working on logistics, but I like to plan the retreats around places I like to go to, but
Yeah.
also the ley lines in the world. So I know we're meant to do one in Avalon coming soon. So my idea for the Avalon one is to start in Avalon in England and then go to on a cruise for the Northern Europe.
Nice. Well, and
Mhm.
that's a nice thing about with the cruise is you can go different places, but you're all together, but you still have time to break out and do it. Yeah.
You do. And then I love the retreats when you're not on a cruise with a lot of other people and
Yeah.
like more,
Yep. So it's a
you know,
nice
different
you can
place.
pick which you can rotate between the two and have both because there is something really nice. I remember when there was a group of about 60 Tango people that came together that were talking about how to teach all of those kinds of things. It was and that sense of community that was created because of that still, and that was, I don't know, 15 years ago. And I still have relationships with the people that I met through there because it is
Mhm.
so life-changing. So, yeah.
Right. And you and I even met on a in-person event on a cruise ship. And it's cool because when you meet people offline before you get back online, or you've been
Yeah.
online and you meet them offline, or you would keep reconnecting both online, offline, it just helps deepen those relationships, which I love.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really like being able to meet somebody in person. And you're right, when you jump back on online and talk to them, you know them,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know them.
Yeah.
So
Like, hey, I'm
we
giving you a hug in person.
exactly. And in Tango we hug everybody. So yeah, hugs are really good. Um, so we have a few minutes left. And so I just want to ask you if there's anything else that you would want to share. I know we've talked a lot about the things that are possible and how basically it's like birthing a podcast with all of the things to prepare and then the connections and things afterwards, and then some of your other activities with the trips and that kind of thing. Is there anything else that you want to kind of add or share before we go?
Yeah, I would say that no matter where you are in your life, whether you're um, finishing one chapter, starting another, if you're in the middle of crisis, or if you're in the middle of some down soul reflection time, know that when you connect inwards and get really grounded, and really to start asking the questions about what am I here to do? And you'll start getting answers. My team loves to tell me answers in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning. We've had to
There's
negotiate
something
a little
special about that time. I don't know what, but yeah.
bit. I've had to negotiate a few times. Can we do 6 a.m. instead of 3 a.m., please? But know that you're here for something grand, something great, and you have everything you need right inside of you to share that message with the world. And it doesn't matter where you are in life or what your background's been, you have something inside you that needs to be shared and can make a difference in someone else's life. So that's what I want to leave with today, is that's really more that you're here for something, the more that you can get that voice out there, just the more people that you can impact.
Great. Um, I will put all of Michelle's information in the show notes. If you have any questions, even if you're just kind of thinking about maybe you might wanna, my recommendation is to talk to her, because you might find that the reason that you think you're being held back is actually not a reason at all. So, yes. So, thank you very much, Michelle. This has been awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you, Diana, so much for having me. And thank you for putting your work out into the world. I just love seeing your show take wings.
Well, and couldn't have done it without you. So,
My pleasure.
thanks. That's it for this reset. Thank you for spending this time with me. If today's episode gave you something to think about, I'd love to have you subscribe so you never miss what's next. And remember to grab your free gift, your midlife superpower, 5 simple power moves to feel like yourself again. The address for this is, or link is, anagelesslife.com/superpower. Thanks again. Bye-bye.